it's Allie, and in today's Craft the Story video, I am going to take you through the process of creating 2 new layouts using some of the brand new stamps that we just made available earlier this week. We do have free international, free shipping everywhere that ends actually on the 28th, which is today if you're watching this in real time. So free shipping is happening on the new stamps, the restocks, the stamp restocks, and the new inks that we have available. So if you want to take advantage of the free shipping, you want to add those to your cart and check out today. Other than that, I'm super excited to show you 2 layouts. Simple and easy stamping techniques that I'm using, but it's such a fun way to, use something that you can use multiple times in a variety of different ways. One of them features one of the new alphabet stamps, which I am just such a huge fan of alphabets for background stamping, for titles, for journaling, obviously anything that involves words. And in this case, the project that I'm putting together, I'm using the stamp set that has a bunch of lines on it, the alpha stamp set with the lines on it, to create a background for my journaling. Becomes a home for that. And then the second project that I'm doing, I'm playing with the speech bubble set. So we've got an outlined speech bubble set and a filled in speech bubble set. So let's dive in and take a look at these projects. All right, the first quick layout I am putting together here is just a fun little recent story about Simon cooking grilled cheese for everybody. Got really inspired after seeing the movie Chef. If you've never seen that, that's a great one with Jon Favreau. And Chef Roy Choi, who is the inspiration, a little bit of the inspiration behind that movie, and also the chef that taught Jon Favreau how to cook these grilled cheese. So Simon had a bunch of fun doing that here recently. And so what I'm going to do for this layout is it's going to be a 2-page outside the page protector, which is, I usually measure that to 7 inches wide by 8 1/4 tall. I have already typed up my journaling because my plan, what I'm going to do here is I'm going to use one of the new stamp sets, this Outline Alpha. And I'm gonna stamp all over the background, and I'm gonna pick one of the phrases from my journaling, which is I enjoy you so much, or man, I enjoy you so much. I think I'm gonna do man, I enjoy you so much. And I'm just gonna do it all over the background here to create a background, and then my journaling is going to live on top of that. And I'll probably add a couple other little embellishments here. I was kind of thinking about stamping the date maybe on the top, or I'm not sure exactly that part yet, but I do know that I want to start off with stamping this. So I'm going to go ahead and stamp the background. I'm also going to use the new green Mackenzie ink that we have. This is going to be great for Christmas time, great for December daily, and anytime you want to use a little bit of a darker ink. All right, first step in the process of creating the stamped background here is to select colors. That's kind of what I thought about first. And I started off anticipating that I was going to use the Mackenzie ink for the whole background, which that's this new green, the dark green that I'm using. But after I did the first phrase, which is, man, I love you so much, I actually thought I was going to do, man, I enjoy you so much, and then I forgot, and I did, man, I love you so much, which is fine. After I did the first 2 rows here, which is that finishes up the phrase, then I decided I wanted to add in a couple other colors too. So I've got the Mackenzie first, then I'm going to bring out the Willamette, which is the main green that we've had for a long time, like a brighter green. And then I did Columbia, which is like a light blue. And then the last row, the last 2 rows will be the Mackenzie ink again. So I really liked having those, 3 different colors involved. Sometimes when I do this, I will mix up the individual words or the individual letters. Like this would look really good if you did it rainbow. One of the questions that I often get asked about this is, why do I not put multiple letters onto one stamp block? Or as you can see here, I'm actually using the lids for the inks. I like having more control, and this is messy still, but I like having more control. And sometimes when you put the multiple letters onto a stamp block, it doesn't always, like, they don't sit right next to each other because there's usually a little bit of an outline from the manufacturing of the ink, or the stamps themselves. So I like to do them individually. It takes a little bit more time, but today when I was doing it, it felt very enjoyable. I said on Instagram the other day, like, it felt meditative, and I just listened to a podcast and I get to stand there and I get to make my little strips. Now you could totally do this same thing, using a whole, a variety of sentences. I just liked picking out one phrase from my journaling and then repeating that 4 different times, I guess is how many times I got that phrase on here. So after I finished getting all of that background stamped on there, then I went in my stash and I grabbed some pattern paper. This is a pattern paper from American Crafts, this little dot one. And I went ahead and adhered that on top of my journaling there. And knowing that I wanted to use this little fabric piece that is from Liz Tamanaha, the Paisley Press Week in the Life mini kit. And I'll link that for you guys below. I just thought it was a cute little thing to use there, and I knew that I probably wasn't going to use it in my own Week in the Life project. I also used a corner rounder because I really like how that looks for the outside of the journaling, and then I went ahead and used foam adhesive to adhere that onto my stamped background. The only other thing I did on this page was grab one of the chipboard hearts from the Week in the Life bundle and then added another fabric piece from Liz's kit onto the photo of Simon that you'll see there in a minute. I just layered it on top of the chipboard piece. I also made sure to add the date on there, and I just did a little repeat stamping with the rolling date stamp on the bottom, and made sure to get the holes punched so it can go directly into my album. Let me know if you guys have any questions on this one, and let's move on to the next project idea. Okay, next up here I am playing with the filled in speech bubbles and one of the new number set here. And I have a big giant photo of peonies from my backyard. I sized it to 9 by 12, and my idea here, and what I initially started playing with, was doing like three speech bubbles around here that will have a number inside of them. And so here's one that I did that is using the Rose Garden, with the Oregon Pinot on top. And then I wanted to try, and I also stamped Everyday Magic along the edge there. That's off the Magic set that was also restocked. And then I tried another one. I wanted to try a different one, which was, I used the purple, and I kind of had the pink still on the stamp there a little bit. Stamped another one, and then I embossed on top. I used white embossing powder. I stamped the number on using Versamark, and then heat set the embossing powder so you have a nice white embossed number on top. And then I'm going to cut this one out just like I did this one. Obviously I'm not going to use 2 number ones. I mainly just wanted to play around a little bit with a couple different options. And I'm not sure yet if I'm going to stamp Everyday Magic on here or if I'm going to add it on in a different way. When I do something like this, I often like to have, feel like I have 3 things going on, right? I have the stamped background, I have the number, and then I will probably end up adding something else, whether it's that Everyday Magic or a phrase sticker or something like this. Now the other thing that I'm thinking about doing with this one for my actual story is adding like just some little circle embellishments or circle journaling spots that would go like right next to them. So I would have 3 different speech bubbles and then 3 different little things, just basically saying like why I love peonies, I think is probably what I'm going to do on there. So I'm going to go ahead and keep just, I'm going to do 3 more speech bubbles, and I think that I'm probably going to follow through with this embossing because I like how this one looks. So I think the next one I'll do a pink, the Rose Garden ink background with the number 2 embossed on top, and then I'll pick one other color for the third one. All right, so going ahead, using those small scissors are really the best way to cut stuff like that out. Sometimes I try to do it with my bigger scissors, and then I'm like, why am I doing this? So definitely the smaller scissors. So next up, I took one of the other shapes of the speech bubbles. I used the Rose Garden ink on there. That's the pink ink that we have. And then I am following those same steps. So I'm using Versamark, which is an embossing ink, and I'm using the number 2. So you can see that I'm stamping that on top. When you use Versamark, it comes out clear. So after that, I am going to grab some white embossing powder. This is from Ranger, I think, and then tapping it off. So trying to really get off the extra. In this case, and actually this one and then the number 3, you'll see I ended up needing to use a little paintbrush. This is just a dry, thin paintbrush to be able to remove some of that extra embossing powder that sometimes wants to stick to the things that I don't want it to stick to. So I just kind of go through around there and then tap it off a few more times, and eventually it's good enough for me. And then I use my heat gun to melt the embossing powder on there. It's pretty cool. Like, as I was looking at these, I was like, oh man, now I want speech bubbles just with the numbers already taken out of them. So that might be another stamp set in the future. But I love being able to get that same look by using a second stamp on top and embossing. So that's what I'm doing here with those numbers. So next up, then I was trying to decide what other color I wanted to do, and I decided that I would bring in the Mackenzie, which is the dark green again, and play around with that. I kind of like those pulling the purple and the pink and the green, definitely some things that are in my yard, onto this one. And I didn't really care if my background didn't come out perfect. Like, that wasn't really a big deal for me, especially because that speech bubble is mainly acting as a home for my next number, which is that number 3. And as I was working on this, I was kind of thinking about, okay, how am I going to get some words on here? How else do I want to do this? And at this point in the process, I'm still imagining, and I'm just embossing the number 3 while I'm talking about this other part. I'm imagining that I will, add on some. Well, at this point in the process, I'm still thinking that I'm going to have the speech bubbles up on the top. I'm also thinking that, maybe I'll just punch out some circles or something for the journaling. But then as I was doing that, I was thinking, oh, well, maybe I could just use the outline speech bubbles. I could do those, stamp those, cut them out, and then have that be the home for, 3 different things about this photo or about peonies right now, which is what I end up doing here in the end. So following that same embossing process, going ahead then and cutting it out with the small scissors because those are the best. And then I will dive into that next part of the process, which is where I'm going to stamp 3 more speech bubbles using the outlined pieces. And I'm just doing this on white cardstock. And I decided to repeat each of the ink colors. So I did one that was the green, one that was the pink, and one that was the purple. And then I could mix and match them around on the page is kind of what my initial idea was as I was diving in here. And I was really excited to see how well those are going to be really fun using those outline stamps there too. And you can do them on top of each other if you want to. I decided not to do that in this case because what I really needed was a home for my journaling. So next I was looking at some of the other stamp sets that we re-released this time. And that one right there was one that I used in December Daily last year. And it has some little stamps at the bottom. And this one that I'm using is one that just says this. And so that is my initial stamp that I am stamping onto each one of those speech bubbles with the plan that I will add my journaling underneath there. I also went ahead and stamped some of these messy circles. I was kind of thinking that maybe I would use those as a third embellishment. I actually don't end up using them, but I do stamp them and then cut them out, and I can use them for another project in the future. Next step is to cut out the speech bubbles there. And I'm doing the same thing that I did on the other ones where I'm essentially leaving a white border around the outside. You can definitely cut them out without the white border if you wanted to. I just like how that looks, especially for the ones with the embossed numbers on the inside. I think it looks really good when you've got the outline there. Now, as you will see as this moves along, you know, initially I was still thinking that I was going to have them kind of around the bouquet that I'm holding in my hand. And then I kind of started thinking, well, maybe I wanted it a little more organized. And part of what I was running into was that I stamped the this onto that one under the 3, the speech bubble under the 3 right there. And then I didn't really like exactly how it was going to fit on there. Like I wish I would have waited to stamp that. So heads up to you, maybe wait to stamp that until you know where you want to place your speech bubble on top of your photo. One of the things I haven't talked about yet is obviously I'm working on a full page photo foundation. That is one of my favorite ways to scrapbook, is to use a photo as the base and then build on top of it. So as I was looking at this, then I was like, oh, maybe I want to put them on the bottom as a grid. And once I started doing that, I was like, oh, I like that. I really like having them oriented on the bottom of the page. And as you'll see in a couple of minutes here, I actually go back in and I reprint the photo because I wanted it to be a little bit different. I did go ahead and stamp Just Awesome, which is from a roller stamp bundle that we have in the shop. I stamped that on there. Again, using each one of those 3 ink colors. And then I'm using a precision pen to just add in a little bit of journaling. And it's basically like, you know, I love peonies. They bloom in May and June. And today I went outside and, you know, picked a few, rescued them from the rain and brought them into my office. And now they're opening up, that kind of journaling. And it was so fun when I was working on this. I was really thinking about, like, when was the last time when I went out, took a picture of something, you know, in my house or outside or wherever, and then scrapbooked it immediately. Like, that's something that I used to do all the time. And it really kind of made me happy to do that today. It seems like a lot of the way that I work now is, you know, more project based, and I have other things going on versus just being like, oh, I'm going to take this picture today and then I'm going to scrapbook it today. So I went ahead and reprinted this photo and because I recropped it. Once I knew that I wanted to have those speech bubbles anchored on the bottom like that, I wanted the top of the peonies to touch the top edge of the background foundation itself. So that is what I did. I went ahead and reprinted it, and I'll probably hang up the other one in my hallway. You can see here I'm adding on the foam adhesive. Anytime I do something like this, I like when I have, especially the paper embellishments, when I can pop them up off the back of the page. I also decided to add on one additional embellishment to my numbers. These are some star brads, metal star brads. I'm pretty sure that these were an add-on to some project that we've had at some point in the time. They were just inside my little box of stars there. So each one of those number speech bubbles got one of those. And then I went ahead and adhered them down by pulling up the foam, the back off the foam adhesive. I always leave the backing on there until I know exactly where I want to adhere it down. I love that about the foam adhesive, that it allows me to move things around on the page until I'm satisfied with where they are located. So I think this one's really fun. I like how it turned out. You can absolutely use this idea for all kinds of different stories and photos, you know, using a full page photo foundation and then using the speech bubble stamps on top. Super fun way to play around with those new stamps. As always, let me know if you guys have any questions in the comments below.